Hello everyone, this is Andrew from Crown Academy of English, and I'm here again for another free English lesson for you all. Today we're going to be looking at apostrophes. So it's going to be a punctuation lesson because apostrophes is a very common source of mistake even by English people. So I think it's very important to have a look at this in closer detail. So let's get started. Well, first of all, what is an apostrophe? Well, the easiest way is to look at a few real-life examples. So I've found some photographs of some signs in shops. These are authentic, proper signs in shops which have used apostrophes. So let's have a look. So here's the first one. Hotel is not responsible for your vehicle or its contents. Okay, so this is the apostrophe here. Can you see it? It goes usually at the top of a word, and it separates two letters. So here it is separating the T and the S. Okay, let's have a look at another example. So this is a sign in a snack shop, in a food shop, a restaurant. So they're selling sandwiches, baguettes and cakes. And this is the apostrophe right here, between the E and the S, and here between the E and the S. So let's have a look at some more examples. And again in a sandwich shop, this sign says, try our new paninis, chicken artichoke or meatball. And again, this is the apostrophe right here. So there we've seen three real-life signs in shops showing real examples of the use of apostrophes. But all of those signs were wrong, okay? I don't know if you noticed it. If you did notice that, well, congratulations. But all three of those signs were using, they had an incorrect use of the apostrophes. Okay, so remember, those were proper professional signs. These shops had paid money for these signs and they made a mistake. And in 2008, in England, there were 2,000 people were given a test to see if they knew how to use apostrophes. So they were given a test to say, here are some questions. Are these sentences right or wrong? And the results were very surprising because 46% of the people failed the test. So almost half of the people in England, so that is their first language, their maternal mother tongue, their first language is English, and they do not know how to use apostrophes. So that is why it is so important. This lesson is so important, okay, because it is often a source of confusion. A lot of people make a lot of mistakes using apostrophes when really there is no reason. Really, it is quite a simple grammar rule, but you just have to know the rule. Okay, so that is the objective of the lesson today, is to make sure that you understand apostrophes and to make sure that you do not that you are not part of this 46%. Okay, I would like you all to be part of the 54% who do know how to use apostrophes. So let's start. So apostrophes, there are three main uses. There are three situations in which we use apostrophes, and we're going to look at them one by one. First of all, missing letters. So we use apostrophes to indicate missing letters from a contracted form. I think it will be easier if I just show you some examples. So an example would be instead of saying I am, so you can say I am or you can write I am, but sometimes we want to have a contracted form, and the contracted form would be I'm. So I am, usually when we say it in informal speech, we would say I'm. For example, I could say I am hungry, and we would say I'm hungry. So this is the apostrophe in red, and the apostrophe is there to indicate that there is a letter which is missing, and the letter which is missing is the letter A. So to indicate that the letter A is missing, we use an apostrophe. Okay, so that's quite simple so far. So that is the first use of the apostrophe. The second use is we use apostrophes before or after the possessive S ending of nouns. So again, that's a little bit complicated, so it's easier if I show you an example. Example: Andrew's car is a Ferrari. Well, I wish it was. So what this means is that Andrew, he has a car. Okay, so the car belongs to Andrew. So what we're saying here is it's the car of Andrew. In other languages, in other European languages, and I'm sure many other languages all over the world, in other languages you say the car of Andrew. Well, in English we don't say that, we say Andrew's car. So Andrew's car is a Ferrari. So the car belongs to Andrew. So the apostrophe here indicates that Andrew has a car and that the car belongs to Andrew. Okay, so it's possession. Andrew possesses a car. Okay. And the third use, and this is a very minor use, it's a very small use, is that a few plurals, not many, and we'll see later on in the lesson, but there are one or two exceptions for plurals where we are authorized, where we are allowed to use apostrophes. And an example would be when we want to discuss a single letter. So if we want to say several letter E's, for example, we can put an apostrophe before the letter S. So the sentence here is there are two E's in the word career. Okay, because if we do not have the apostrophe, then it looks a bit strange. It's difficult to understand what we are saying because we can see a letter E and an S, and we don't know what it means. Anyway, each of these three uses, so missing letters, possessives, and special plurals, we are now going to look at them one by one in more detail. So I'm going to give you just a few more details, a little bit more information on each of these three. So let's start with missing letters. So let's start at the top of the screen. So as we said before, we use apostrophes to indicate missing letters from contracted forms. And here are some very common examples. There are many more, but these are the most common ones, I think. For example, I am tired is the full form, and in the contracted form we say I'm tired. So this is the apostrophe, and the apostrophe is there to indicate that the letter A is missing. Next one, I have a sore throat. In the contracted form, we can say, I've a sore throat. I've a sore throat. And again, the apostrophe here is to show that we are missing some letters. And in fact, here we are missing two letters. We are missing the H and the A. The third example is, it is an important day. And in the contracted form, this is, it's an important day. And the apostrophe is indicating that we are missing the letter I. So it is missing. Here is the train. Here's the train. The dogs are not barking. The dogs aren't barking. Where is Andrew? Where's Andrew? Isabel does not love him. Isabel doesn't love him. So in the last one, this is a negative. And the apostrophe is showing that there is the letter O, which is missing from the word not. Okay. I have done a separate lesson. The rules for how we create a contracted form, it's quite long. There's quite a few rules for that, and it is not the objective of today's lesson. So I've done a separate lesson which I will upload very soon for discussing the contracted forms in more detail. But what is important to understand for this lesson is that apostrophes are the use of apostrophes to indicate missing letters. That is one of the uses of apostrophes. Okay, that is the purpose of today's lesson. So if you understand that, then that's great. Now, if you look at the bottom, what is important here is contracted forms. So all of these sentences here on the right hand side, they are common and correct in informal writing to show informal speech. So this is how we would speak in English. This is very often how everyone speaks, because it's quicker and easier to say I'm rather than I am. I am, it's two words, it's two syllables, and here it's I'm, it's much quicker. So this is used in informal speech and informal writing. But if you are writing formally, for example, if you are writing a letter to a company or for a job application, or you're writing to a newspaper, for example, then we do not usually use the contracted form. It is better to use the full form on the left hand side. It is better, it's better to write that. It's better when we're reading it. So moving on. So now we're looking at the possessive use. So we're now looking at the second type of use of apostrophes. And here there are about 4 or 5 different examples. So it's about 4 or 5 pages here. So the first one is we use apostrophes before or after the possessive S ending of nouns. Again, it's easier if I show you an example. Example 1, a single owner. So if we want to indicate possession of a single noun, then we add an apostrophe followed by the letter S to the owner. Example: I have a dog. I have one dog, and my dog has a tail. Here it is. Here's the tail, and this is the dog. So my dog has a tail, So if we want to talk about the tail, we say my dog's tail. So my dog is single, it's a singular owner. So we follow this rule here. So if you look here, we have added an apostrophe in red. Like we said here, add an apostrophe. And after the apostrophe, we add a letter S. And that's what we can see here in the rule. And we add the letter S to the owner. The owner is the dog, because the dog is the owner of the tail. So in the singular form, when we have one dog, we add an apostrophe to the end of the word, and after the apostrophe, we add the S. Okay, so that is the basic rule for singular nouns. Another example would be that America has a president, and so we would say America's president. So it's the president of America. America is singular, there is only one America, and so we add an apostrophe and then we add the S. Okay. Let's now look at plurals. Okay, so we're now looking at plural nouns. And so for plurals, we add an apostrophe after the S. Okay, so because a plural word already has an S at the end, all we need to do is to add an apostrophe after that S. Example. So in the field, there are 3 horses. So the horses with an S, because it's plural, the horses have a field. Okay. So if we now want to talk about the field, we would say the horses field. Okay. And if you can see here, so the horses is the plural, it's the same word as here in the original sentence. And we just add the apostrophe to the end of the word, but we do not add another S onto the end. Okay, so this is this rule here. To show ownership of several owners, you add an apostrophe after the S. So that's what we've done. We've added an apostrophe after the S. The horses field. And these two are wrong. So this is to show you what would be wrong. So this one, this line here, the horses' field, I mean, that is just completely wrong. We're mixing different rules and exceptions here. We've added an apostrophe and also an S, and we do not do that. That is wrong. And the third line here, the horses field, this would be correct if there was only one horse in the field. Okay, if the field only belonged to one horse, if there was only one horse who had her field, that would be correct. Okay, so this is the singular. This is the singular owner. But this is wrong because here we have 3 horses. Okay. And this one is also wrong. The horses field, there is no apostrophe here at all, but that is wrong because we must use an apostrophe to show possession. So that is wrong. This is just a plural, in fact. The horses, this is just a normal plural. Example 3. Irregular plural possessives. Okay, so in English there are some words which are plural, but they do not end in the letter S. And so there's a special rule for that case. We do not use this rule in that case. We have a slightly different rule. So for those cases, for a noun which is plural but which does not end in an S, we in fact treat it like it was a singular. So we add an apostrophe and then the letter S. Example. The children, so it's plural, the children, one child, together make two children. So one child, two children. So children is plural, but there is no S. Okay, so it's an irregular plural. The children, they have a computer. The children have a computer. And we treat it like it was a singular. So we use the rule that we saw on the previous screen with the dog's tail. It's the same rule. The children's computer, apostrophe S at the end. Okay, but the meaning is obviously still plural. We're talking about the computer, which belongs to several people. So to children, because children is plural. So to several childs, but we don't say child, we say children. And so this is to show this is wrong. And this is an example of the rule that we saw at the top. So this is the rule for if it was a regular plural. So that is wrong because this is children is an irregular plural. So we do not follow this rule. And the children's computer without any apostrophe, that is wrong because we must use an apostrophe to indicate possession. And that's a mistake. This is the final line. I've made a mistake. This is the same. The second line and the fourth line, they're the same. So they're both wrong. They're both wrong. It's just a duplicate. I've made a duplicate there. Okay, so some more possessive uses. All right, so when we have two people who share something together as a couple, so if there are two people who share the same thing, we only use one apostrophe. Example. So there's Kate and William. Kate and William's wedding. Okay, so they are two people, two separate people, and they are sharing the same wedding. Okay, so they both have a wedding which belongs to them. It is their wedding. It's William. It's a wedding of William, and it is a wedding of Kate. And the wedding is the same one. It's the same wedding for William as the same wedding for Kate. So when that is the case, when they are sharing the same thing, we only use an apostrophe on the second word. Okay, we only need to put the apostrophe on William. We do not put the apostrophe here on Kate. And so we do not need to put an apostrophe here. We do not need to say Kate's and William's wedding, because it's the same wedding for both of them. So we only need to say Kate and William's wedding. And Kate and William's wedding with the apostrophe after the word, well, that is just completely wrong, because that suggests that there is more than one William. And I don't think Kate has married more than one William. Well, at least she hasn't told us. So that is grammatically wrong. That is why this is wrong. A slightly different situation would be when two different people own things, but they are owning them separately. So as individuals, if they own things separately, then we use two apostrophes. Example. again we've got Kate and William. And if we want to talk about their clothes, so we want to say Kate and William's clothes, this would be correct, because as you can see, the clothes of William and the clothes of Kate, the clothes are different. For the clothes of William are different to the clothes of Kate. You can see William, he's wearing a suit, and Kate is wearing a dress. So they own things, but separately. They own the same, they own clothes, they have clothes, but William's clothes are different to Kate's clothes. So to indicate that in written English, or in spoken English as well, we have to put two apostrophes in the sentence, one on each noun. That is why this one is wrong. Okay, so Kate and William's clothes, this line, this is the same as at the top of the screen. This is this rule at the top. So this sentence, if you see that is indicating that Kate and William have exactly the same clothes, which is wrong. And this is wrong at the bottom, Kate's and William's clothes. Well, there's no apostrophe there at all, and that is wrong. We must use an apostrophe to show possession. Okay, there's a slight exception for when there is a personal name, so a name of somebody, that ends in an S. An example would be, an example would be a name like Charles. Okay, the name is Charles, and there is already an S at the end, but obviously Charles is singular because it's only one person. So it's a different situation. So let's look at how we manage that. Well, we use an apostrophe. We treat it as though it's just a normal singular noun. So we use an apostrophe followed by an S in the case where you would normally pronounce the extra S if you said the word out loud. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's have a look at an example. So you can see this line here, this sentence here, and when we say this, okay, when we say this, we say, if we want to say the car of Charles in using a possessive, using an apostrophe with a possessive, we would say Charles's car, okay? So we actually hear the second S, we would say Charles's. So because of that, so this is the bit where we're saying where you would naturally pronounce an extra S. Well, that is the case. We would naturally pronounce this S. So in that case, we are allowed to use an apostrophe and we add the S on. And it's the same for the name Francis. Okay, so Francis in the singular, or Francis without any possession, we would say Francis. And when we want to discuss the wife of Francis, we would actually pronounce this second S. We would say Francis's wife, Francis's wife. It's quite difficult to say, but we do say that second S. So that is why we use an apostrophe and we add the S. So it's exactly as though it's exactly the same as a singular noun. Okay, so this rule here is it's exactly like a singular noun, so exactly like the dog's tail that we saw earlier. Okay, it's the same rule. But there are some personal names where it doesn't sound right, it sounds wrong if we pronounce that final S. It's too difficult to say. It's too difficult to say sometimes, that final S. And in that case, we do not add the S at the end. We just add the apostrophe. So, and an example would be if we wanted to talk about the best match of Jimmy Connors. So in the singular, sorry, without the possession, without the possession, we would say Jimmy Connors. And if we want to discuss the best match of Jimmy Connors, we do not say Jimmy Connors's. Okay, try to say it. Try to say it. Jimmy Connors's. It's impossible to say, and it doesn't sound right. It sounds wrong. It's too long. It's too complicated. So we do not. So since we do not say the final S, we do not write it either. Okay, so that is the logic behind the rule. Okay, we do not say the final S, so we do not write it. So Jimmy Connors' best match was against John McEnroe. So these were obviously both famous tennis players. Times. So we use apostrophes sometimes to discuss times or periods. So if an expression of time has some sort of a possessive meaning, then we use apostrophes. Let me show you an example. Okay, so if we want to discuss, let's look at the brackets first. If we want to discuss something which is an experience that lasts 2 months, for example, somebody has some work experience, someone has worked as a secretary, somebody works as a secretary, and they have done that for 2 months. We could say, so that would, one way of saying that would be they have an experience of 2 months. So because this is okay to say experience of 2 months, we can in fact use an apostrophe form. We are allowed then to say 2 months experience. And since months is plural, we use the plural noun rule to write the apostrophe. So we put the apostrophe after the final S, and we do not add any more S's. Okay, so 2 months experience. 1 month's experience. So 1 month is singular by definition because it's just one. So 1 month's experience. And there we were putting in apostrophe before the S because this is singular. Okay, singular. So we use the singular noun rule. We put an apostrophe at the end of the word and we add an S. And this is grammatically fine. This is grammatically correct because it is okay to say experience of 1 month. This sounds right. This is a valid sentence in English. But we cannot say 8 months. When we say 8 months pregnant, it's wrong to use an apostrophe. Okay. We say 8 months pregnant, but we do not write it with an apostrophe. And the reason is, the rule behind it is because there is no possession in fact here. There's no concept of pregnant of 8 months. That just does not make sense. That doesn't mean anything. Pregnant of 8 months. That is not something that we would say in English. It's nonsense. All right. So this example here, 8 months pregnant, there is no possessive. There's no idea or concept of possession. All right. So we use apostrophes to indicate possession. Here there is no possession, so we do not use an apostrophe. So the correct way of writing this is without the apostrophe, 8 months pregnant. All right. Now, this section here of when not to use an apostrophe for possession, this is probably one of the most important parts of today's lesson, because this is where most people make a mistake. Okay, so let's have a look at this. We do not use apostrophes with any possessive personal pronoun. Now, the possessive personal pronouns, they are the words like my, your, his, her, its, our, and their. Whenever we use these words, we never, ever use an apostrophe. The reason is because we are using an apostrophe to indicate possession. Well, all of these words, all possessive personal pronouns, they implicitly indicate possession. Okay, it is implied by their very use. So by definition, we already know that there is possession, because that is the meaning of all of these words. My, for example, my car. Well, the car belongs to me. That's what the word my means. It means it's the car of me. So we do not have to indicate it a second time using an apostrophe. It's irrelevant. So when we say I like my car, we write it like this. There's no need for an apostrophe, or no need for a letter S, or no need for S apostrophe. We just write it, I like car. The same for your. You say, where is your home? No apostrophe. But this still means possession. It means, where is the home of you, in fact. But we never say the home of you. We say, where is your home? And so his dog, okay, that is wrong because there's an apostrophe there. We do not write the apostrophe. So even though there is a letter S at the end, that makes no difference. We still write it without without the apostrophe. So we write it like this, his dog, no apostrophe. That is correct. Now, the next one is the most important. Okay, this next one is where most people make the most mistakes. Okay, so let's look at this. This is probably the most important part of the lesson. Let's look at this sentence. First of all, let's look at the first part. It's time to go to work. Okay, can you see here there is an apostrophe? It's time to work. It's time to go to work. We have used an apostrophe between the letter T and the letter S. But let's remember, that is an example of the contracted form. We are using an apostrophe here because it is the contracted form. We are missing a letter. So here the meaning of it is it is. We are missing the letter I. So that is why it is correct here to use an apostrophe for it. So it's time to go to work. But my car has a problem. Okay, so the car has a problem. Now this is the important bit. Its battery is flat. So what is flat? Well, it's the battery of the car. The battery of the car is flat. So it is indicating the possession between the car and the battery. Okay, so it's the battery of the car. So the car has the battery. That is the possession. So this here, this here, this is an example of a possessive personal pronoun. Possessive personal pronoun. And as we've seen here, the rule for possessive personal pronouns is that we do not use apostrophes. Okay? Here, the word it's exactly the same as the word his. It's not the same meaning, but it's an equivalent. It's also similar to the word your, my. And as we've seen here, for my and your and his, we do not use an apostrophe. Well, it's exactly the same for the word it's, when it is being used as a possessive personal pronoun. This is a big source of mistake because people confuse this version of it's with this meaning of it's. Okay? So my advice to you would be, when you hear the word it's, or when you are considering using the word it's, stop and think, what is the meaning? What are you trying to say? If you are using it as, if there is a missing letter in the word it's, in other words, if you are saying it is something, if you're using the verb to be, then yes, you are okay to use an apostrophe. But if the meaning of the word it's, if the it's is referring to possession between two nouns, in this example, the car and the battery, the car has a battery, the battery of the car, then in that case, it's not the verb to be, it is in fact a possessive personal pronoun, and so we do not use an apostrophe. Okay? If you can remember this rule, okay, you will be better than 46% of the English, okay, because in that test that I told you about at the beginning, where 46% of the English people do not know how to use apostrophes, this is where they made the mistake. Okay, the very, very common mistake. So this is, obviously this one is correct, and we've seen why it's correct, and this is wrong. Okay, and we've just explained why it's wrong. Okay, because here with an apostrophe, that is indicating that there is a missing letter, but there isn't a missing letter. We're not saying it is battery. We're saying the battery of the car. So that is wrong. This is not a possessive personal pronoun when it's written with an apostrophe. Okay, so the final slide is just to look at those very few cases where plurals will use an apostrophe, and there are only two situations. And the first one is plurals of single letters. So, for example, if we wanted to say to somebody, find all the letter C's in the word accommodation, then we can use an apostrophe to separate the letter C from the letter S. And the reason we do that is simply to separate it physically so that it is easier to read. Okay, so imagine if there was no apostrophe there. You find all the CS, you might say find all the CS, and you don't know what that means. So we are allowed to insert an apostrophe to separate the two letters so that we understand that we're talking about several letter C's. Okay? And it's exactly the same for single numbers. Okay, so for example, you could say to somebody, if they don't write very well, if they write badly, you would say to them, you would write, it is difficult to read your eights. And there we use an apostrophe to separate the number 8 from the letter S. So it's easier then to say that it's in the plural. Otherwise it would be, it is difficult to read your 8S, and we don't know what it means. It's difficult to interpret. Okay, those two are the only plurals, and I'm going to repeat this, those are the only plurals to use apostrophes. Okay, any other time that you want to use a noun in the plural form, you do not use an apostrophe. So for all the other cases, all the other situations where you want to use a plural, do not use an apostrophe. It is wrong. And in fact, that was the error in the signs that we saw earlier. If you remember, they were writing sandwiches with an apostrophe at the end. That was wrong. They did the same with the word panini. They wrote paninis. Okay, well, paninis, even the word paninis is probably wrong, because panini is the plural. But let's suppose paninis with an S is correct. Even then, it's only a plural. We do not use apostrophes with a plural. And so another example where we do not use apostrophes is when we're talking about a year. So it's 1960, this is not a single number. Okay, it's not a single number, so we do not use an apostrophe. This is wrong. Okay, there's no need to use an apostrophe because it's easy to read. If we do not use an apostrophe, it's not difficult to read. We can see very easily that we're talking about a year. So we would, and a plural. So we would say the Beatles were famous in the 1960s. There's no problem to say that. CDs. Okay, no need for an apostrophe. We can see, without the apostrophe, we can see it's a plural, and because we're using a small letter S, we can see it is separate from the CD. So there is no need for an apostrophe. Apples. It's just a plural. We're talking about one apple, two apples, several apples. We're just using a plural. There is no possession, there are no missing letters. So we just need to write apples with an S. There's no need at all to use an apostrophe. Euros. Okay, you often see this mistake on shop signs or in shops or in stores. For some reason, shop owners decide to write the word euros with an apostrophe. No idea why. It's wrong. Okay, you just used the word without the apostrophe. It's just a simple plural. There are, something costs €5. You just write it without an apostrophe. DVDs, very similar to the word CDs. Okay, there's no need. It's written in capitals, in uppercase, and the plural will be in lowercase. So there's no need to use an apostrophe. We can just type DVD with an S at the end. Okay. Out of all of these, it is this column here which is the worst, in fact, because the apples and euros, this column, if these are written with an apostrophe, it is a very, very big mistake. Okay. CDs, DVDs, it is a mistake. It's not, it's not following the rule, but it's becoming, I suppose it's acceptable. It's acceptable. It's not a shocking mistake to see this. Okay, you see it a lot, but that doesn't make it correct. Okay, but it's not a big mistake, I would say. It's, it's not going to be a shocking mistake, but if you did it in a grammar test, then it would be wrong, to be honest. All right. But this column, this is important. Apples, euros, chips, cars. Never use an apostrophe. Never, never, never use an apostrophe, please. Okay, so right at the end now, you've seen all the rules. So it's your time now to work a little bit. So I'm going to give you some questions, show you some sentences, and you have to decide which sentence is correct and which sentence is wrong. Example. Hurry up, it's time to go to school. So without an apostrophe. Or do we say it with an apostrophe? So which one is correct? Is it this one or this one? So have a little think. I'm going to give you 5 seconds. Well, the answer is this one, with an apostrophe. And the reason is because here there is a missing letter, isn't there? We're saying it is time to go to school. It's the verb to be. There's no possession. We're not saying the time of it. We're saying it is time to go to school. It's time to go to school. There's a missing letter. The letter I is missing, so we must use an apostrophe. Okay, so for the next few questions, there are about 4 or 5, I think. Yes, I think there are 5 questions. And I will show you the sentences to choose from, and then you will have 10 seconds before the answer appears on the screen. So if 10 seconds is not enough for you, then you can pause the video when you see the questions. So when you see the sentences, if you do not think 10 seconds is long enough, then just pause the video. Otherwise, you can just keep playing. So, question 1. And the correct one is the first one. So my father, he has a car. So it's the car of my father. And I only have one father. Okay, so father is singular. And the rule for a singular noun is to add an apostrophe to the end of the word and then add an S. Okay, so my father's car, apostrophe S. So this one is wrong. And this one is wrong. Question 2. So, it's the last one which is correct. And the reason is because chips, well, what is it? It's just a simple plural. We are selling several chips. When we sell you a portion of chips, there are several of them. It's just a plural. There are no missing letters, and there's no possession. So, no need at all to use an apostrophe. So, this one is wrong, and this one is wrong. There are apostrophes. We do not use apostrophes for plurals. And here, there is a missing letter here. There's a missing letter because the sentence, the full sentence would be, who is that man with Claire? Who is the verb to be? So there is a missing letter I here. So there's a missing letter, so we use an apostrophe. And this one is wrong because we haven't used an apostrophe when we must use an apostrophe. So this is wrong. Okay, so this is an example of the very important one, the very important rule that we saw earlier. This one is correct in the middle, the second sentence. I like this restaurant. Its food is delicious. So, we are not saying it is food is delicious. We're not saying it's not the verb to be. So there are no missing letters. Okay. Now, there is possession, there is the idea of possession here. We are talking about the food of the restaurant. But the noun, we are using a personal possessive pronoun. Okay? This is exactly the same as the word my or your or their. And as we saw earlier, we never use an apostrophe with personal possessive pronouns. So that is why this one is correct without the apostrophe. And that is why these are wrong. So we do not use an apostrophe. So this one, first one is wrong, and this one is wrong as well. So here we have a photograph of two dogs. Okay, so there are two dogs, and they are both playing with their ball. This word is important. It's their ball. So they are sharing the ball. Okay, the ball belongs to this dog, and the ball also belongs to this dog. Okay, so that is the context for this question. Okay, and so now that you know that, here are the two sentences. And it is this one in the middle, the second one. The dog's ball is yellow. So with an apostrophe at the end of the word, and there is no S after this. This is the rule, if you remember, this is the rule for plural nouns. So for indicating possession of a plural noun. The ball, it's the ball of the dogs with a plural. The ball belongs to this dog and this dog. So to indicate the plural, we use the apostrophe after the letter S, and that is all. We do not add an S after that. So this one is wrong because this is indicating a single dog. So this would be right if there was just one dog on the photograph. If there was just this dog on the photograph, then this one would be correct. And this last one is just wrong on every level. This is just mixing two different rules. This is completely wrong at the end. So that is it. That is the end of this lesson. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel and then click on like as well. So subscribe please to my channel, and then you'll be notified of all my other videos. And click on like as well. It just gives me a bit of encouragement to, it shows me that I'm creating good lessons for you. I'm creating good videos, keeps me motivated. And leave a comment as well if you want to leave a comment or ask a question, then feel free. They are very often, apostrophes are usually quite a controversial subject in English grammar. It's a very sensitive subject. There are even clubs and associations defending the use of apostrophes and pointing out or outlining incorrect use. So do a search in Google, do a search for incorrect use of apostrophes, and you'll see lots of sites which are talking about this subject and showing lots of signs in shops of incorrect uses of apostrophes. It's quite funny. So I'm expecting quite a bit of debate perhaps on this video. It's but I can guarantee that all the rules I have included in this video are official, correct rules of British English and also American English, and I'll give you the sources of those grammar rules. I'll give you the sources of them in the description of the video. All right, so thanks very much for listening and watching, and see you soon. Bye bye.